All right, all right. Okay, so yeah. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a while, man. I've been kind of a little busy doing some other things. All right, welcome back to my station's TV station channel. Today, I just wanna basically I'm trying to stick on topic where I'm trying to highlight the the curse of African people. You know, the Canaanites or the Canaans, and I want people to really understand that, yeah, even though today we put a lot of, you know, trust and faith into the Bible, you know, it's a belief standard type of lifestyle, but it was a book that was set up to destroy a certain groups of people. And due to due to the Muslims, let me look this up real quick. Let me see. The Muslims started, or I should say, not started, but they initiated the enslavement of the Canaans, or the black people, or African people, or dark skinned people. And that's where the curse actually started from, you know? And I want people to really understand, like, you know, if you're gonna, especially for African people, if you already had your own God, you already had your own lifestyle, you already had your own civilization, your community, you already had your tribes, you was already doing things the way you guys were supposed to live, or the way you guys was living in your own comfort zone. And the Bible started out with the curse. Well, you know, he created the heavens, the earths, and all that good stuff. But once it came to the Noah, once it came to Noah, there was a curse that put on Canaans, right? The sons of, I think it was Shem. No, the sons of Ham. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was the sons of Ham. He had Noah had three sons. It was Ham, Shem, and Japheth. I think Shem, yeah, Ham's supposed to be the oldest son. I think Ham was the oldest, I'm assuming, and Japheth was the youngest, and Shem probably was the second, if I remember correctly. I'm not too sure, but don't quote me. But hey, how you doing? How you doing? How everybody? Two number names. Yeah. My eyes are a little messed up, so excuse me for doing a little spine. I gotta look at the words and stuff. Hey, how you guys doing? How you guys doing? Right. So basically, I'm just trying to highlight how the Bible basically wasn't a book for the Canaans, or I mean, the Israelites is it was meant for the Israelites, right? But there was a curse put upon the Canaanites, right? And that led into the African people being into slavery, right? Now it's not all of them, of course, but due to the the idea that they all look the same with the same skin tone, the Bible basically forced, well, not the Bible, but they used the Bible to force those people into slavery. Now, some people will say, well, you know, the book is not the fault for slavery. Maybe, maybe not, but it was the initiation to pick and choose which people supposed to be treated how or not treated how. You know what I'm saying? So what I want to do is, even when it comes to the Adam, and even when it came down to the garden and all this, where Eden was located. Um, yeah, I'm in the U.S. I'm in the U.S. Yeah, hey, Anton Robert, what's up, man? What's up? Yeah, so I just want people to really understand. Like 'cause some people read the book and they look at it just like as a fantasy, but the book is being played out. The book is being played out, meaning that it's an architect for life. It's an architect the way we are living today. You have to live from the time you was a child. Most cases, or the practice was to embed that mentality of this book into your brain as you become older, because our whole entire existence, the planet Earth, I would say, is basically embedded into this book, right? Because there's a structure for it. Now, this is just my conspiracy. I'm not trying to say this is what the focus idea was, but you guys already know that Greece and the Romans, or the Greeks started it first, but the Romans wanted to conquer the world, right? Once the Romans got conquered Egypt, and because Egypt was like the second biggest or the biggest next to the Romans. But the Romans chip them off, chip them off, chip them off until the Romans got pretty much run Egypt, right? They pretty much got became king, queens, or rulers in Egypt. Now, once the biblical part of the Virgin or the Christianity started kicking up, which is like the Jesus story and all that stuff, they embedded their point of view, or they use that ideology to implement their focus goal of conquering. Because still to this day, I would say this. Remember, this is not a fact. I'm not speaking of fact. I'm just going based on the stuff I've read, and I'm kind of putting two and two together. Yeah, same to you, man. Same to you, Joseph. Same to you. Right. So what I'm saying is, due to the point of you know the Romans was really trying to conquer the world or whatever. I mean, and we could go back to um, the Vikings and the Vikings. You know what I'm saying? But let's focus on the Romans, okay? So my concept is that the people today, aka white people, if y'all want to call them that, are basically descendants of the Romans, right? And yeah, they're spread out through England and all these places, and they've conquered different places around the world or whatever, but they never really had the whole entire place in control, because those places they haven't been yet. Now, even in the even in the them trying to explore the planet, I would say, you had the Christianity or the Israelites creating this strong godly presence in the society of the people, and it was spreading very rapidly. So when Jesus came into the mix and he started seeing how people are gravitating to the Christian lifestyle, my perspective is that Pilate and all these different Roman guys back in the day. I don't remember who was really running at the time, but I don't know his name. But I don't remember his name. He saw that as an opportunity, because even when they had locked Jesus up, for a good amount of times before they crucify him, he wanted Jesus, because they let him go. They locked him up and then they let him go, because they gave him a chance to kind of like reconsider his situation. Uh, yeah, Peerless, what's up? What's up? What's up, Jim? Yeah, I hear you, man. Jim is in process. Anyway, hello to everybody. Welcome, welcome. All right, so like I was saying, I'm not saying what I'm saying is a fact. I'm just kind of speculating. I'm kind of adding two and two together, and it makes sense to me. So, like I said, once the Romans saw that Jesus was, he was collecting the people was gravitating to him through his teachings, this whole Hebrew, teachings. He was like, you know what? I can use this idea because the Egyptian concept of control you know, um, was basically man isn't the representation of God, right? That's the Egyptian ideology. There was, they had Isis and, you know, um, Ra and ISIS and all these people. Those they were just regular human beings mimicking a representation of a god, right? It's not that they believe there was some creature above them, but they see themselves as the gods and they mimic what these gods should look like. But they're human beings, right? That's why they dressed up like the characters, right? Because they want people to see them as these people. Now, when Jesus as a man came into, to like Egypt and them places, and he started destroying and kicking over tables, and he seen all these people like, what? Okay, so this one man can do this, can do that, da 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 da. So they said, well, okay, this guy got power. But anyway, short story is, when they locked him up, I can't remember his name, but I gotta look up his name. I know he's not. I don't know if it's Palm Pilot or Giza. Where the Giza? No, it's not Giza, but I can't remember his name. But anyway, once they locked him up, they tried to convince him to work for them, to convince the people to, basically, he could still preach his religious stuff, but he have to work into the Roman, you know, um, you know, government, you know what I mean, or be the ruler, right? Because the guys that they had, the accountants and stuff, the guys that they had there, they wasn't really doing much, right? And they didn't. They just liked to see how Jesus came and just gravitate. People just gravitate to him. But anyway, long story short, I'm gonna make because my point is to kind of like give a backstory to how this setup for slavery or for black people to end up in slavery, or how the Bible is not generally a good place altogether, right? Because it was made to be a govern. The Bible was made to be a govern. It was a governing book, right? Now, long story short, Jesus refused. They killed him, and you know, John and all these people that try to still imitate the story from there on. But now we're gonna go back to the beginning with like Genesis, because we kind of skipped Genesis for a minute. We're gonna go back to Genesis now. All right. So I just wanted to kind of like not get people confused a little bit. So back to Genesis. So in Genesis, when Noah decided that they're gonna build a boat to go travel in the ocean 40 days, 40 nights. When they got hit into land, and also too when it comes to Eden, a lot of people think Eden is in Africa. Eden is not in Africa. Come on now. I mean, I guess you want to call it Pangea back in the day, but Eden was between Middle East, in like just below Turkey, basically. That's where Eden was, right? And the sad thing and here's the conundrum to that. Eden was below Turkey, and when Noah's boat landed, aka Noah's boat, on top of Turkey. That don't really make sense. Like, I mean, why would the boat suddenly end up just back the same place above what Garden of Eden was? That don't make sense. Yeah, 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 yeah. Just the screensaver, bro. Don't take it personal. Yeah, hi. How you doing? Pretty much. It doesn't make sense, but a lot of people believe in it. So I'm just trying to give my perspective, or basically, because I read the book for what it is. I don't try to implement my, try to like fantasize it or anything, but I just put my pieces together and make the logic out of it. And I pretty much think if everybody is into logic, well, we all should be in logic because, hey, logic is what makes us humans, right? If we don't see the logic of something, then we're basically delusional, right? Which is a lot of people anyway. So anyway, let me get focused. So yeah, I'm getting distracted. So basically, what I'm saying is this: Noah's son, right? Um, it was it was Ham, Shem, and Japheth. It was three sons. Noah had three sons, and Noah's three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. I think Ham had saw Noah naked. If I remember correctly, let me double check on that real quick. All right, let me double check on that real quick. I think it was Genesis. Where's the guy doing this heterosexual? Yep, yep. I mean, I don't think anything is hidden, bro. It's like it's in plain sight. It's just that we tend to play the fool about it, or we tend to not believe. We try to put too much in what we see. You know what I mean? Like we try to put. Like you read something, it is what it is. Now, what the confusion about the Bible is that in my perspective, is different stories or different conversations about the same thing. So people, it's like five people, it's like two people in, like three people in one room, and we all talking about the same thing, but each one of us have a different way of articulating the conversation or whatever we're talking about. And what they did to me, my understanding is that they all these three people put their own version of the story in the same book, and that's where the contradiction. That's why you have a lot of contradiction. It's almost like they're having a conversation towards each other, and making judgment towards each other and just writing it down. Like, so one person agreed to something while the other person saying, well, this is how this one, but the other person's, well, I agree with you, but we can do this too. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's how I view it. Well, God is not Jesus. Jesus is just I mean, I don't know why people don't think God is Jesus. God just sent one of His minions to do His work, and really and truly, that's not even a real story anyway. So I'm not even taking that personal. I mean, serious. No, they don't think about what they actually believe. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sorry for squinching my eyes, man. I gotta look at the words really tiny, Dot to that long. Yeah, yeah. All right, so let me go back into what I was saying. So, because my focus is not about the book being fake or not. It's more about cause people are following the book. Whether we think it's fake or not, people believe it's real. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta focus on what the people believe or what they think is real. So that's what I want to really kind of bring sense of, right? And hopefully, somebody can like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? In reality perspective, right? That's why I said the reality, reality is true. We have to see the reality of things, right? All right, so going into it, so what I'm saying is this. I got distracted. So it was Genesis. I think it was um, number 9. I don't know. And Cain and Abel. I think it's 9. I think it was Genesis 9. The face on the earth. Noah's. Okay. Noah built an ark. Yeah, I think it's 9. Flood of water. 48, 49. Yeah, it's numbered. Yeah, it's Genesis 9. Okay, so Genesis 9. Who shepherd man the blood by his man shall be. Noah's son. All right, so Shem, Ham. All right, so yeah, I was right. So it was 3 sons: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, so what I'm saying is this: the reason why slavery in Africa specifically got targeted, not that, a lot of people like to say that slavery was everywhere. That's true. That's not. I'm not taking that away. That is true. But slavery and what they call, because remember the word slavery wasn't a thing back then. They would call them servants, or what's the other word, worker or something like that, right? Um, or property. They would just use the word property, right? This is my property, right? But even in that context, those people, even in that context, those people was, they worked for them. They had a place to sleep, inside the house or whatever. And some of them become part of the community, have children, all of that good stuff. Now, let's go into the Bible perspective, because we're talking about the curse. We're talking about the curse. We're talking about the reality of why things happen the way it is. Now, we already established, like I said, I already established, gave my breakdown of how I view the Bible entirely. It's a guidebook for, the Caucasians, the Romans, if you want to put it that way, to conquer the world. And if you really pay attention to it, they have never stopped conquering the world. America is built on the design of the layout or the blueprint for Egypt, right? That's a fact. Like, when I say it's a fact, I mean it's a fact. Like, if you look at Egypt layout, the structure, the symbolism, the designs, even the politics, right? The even when it comes to taxes, right? Egypt was taxing people. America took on that same style of living. Matter of fact, they all did. Greece, they all did. They all took the same style. And America took that same style. So the whole idea of taxes and stuff came from, I wouldn't say maybe that's the only place, but from what I know, that's where America is really following the structure. This is why America, in any landmass in America, is not owned by anybody. most landmass in any country don't really put such a heavy tax on their people because the people is what makes up the land, the community, right? But in America, you definitely owning nothing over here. They're letting you know you don't own nothing, right? You got to pay for it. So that's the layout for America when it comes to the structure and the blueprint of the design of it. Now, back to my focus. The curse of Ham, right? Because the curse of Ham play a part into the civilization or the way we live in today. Because people are still living by this Bible. People are still following this Bible. The Vatican still following this Bible. The as I said, the Jew hats, they're still following the Bible. They're still living by those standards. And as you already know, they said the Jews run the world. You know what I'm saying? So we following it, right? We're living by the structure, whether we like it or not. Now, here's what I'm going to go and do. When Noah cursed Ham, right? And he said curse Ham. No, he said curse Canaan. The son of Ham, right? Because when they went on the boat, Canaan girl was pregnant. Not Canaan. Ham girl was pregnant and she got Canaan. So Canaan was a little boy by time they landed on um, uh, over there by Turkey Mountain over there, right? But Ham laughed at his father because he saw him naked, and his father cursed him and saying that Canaan, the son of Ham, is gonna be cursed because he made fun of his father while he was naked and drunk, and he gonna be a servant to Shem and Japheth, which is the other two brothers, right? He didn't say he gonna be a servant. Remember, the slave wasn't a word back then. You gotta remember this. Slavery was not a word back then, right? Slavery is just something that popped up probably like the 12th, 11th century, somewhere around there, right? That's like a couple, what, 3, 4 years before slavery before Africa started being invaded into slavery, or they start picking on African people. But the Arabs once the Arabs' biblical story was written, right? Because remember, the Arab story is a mimication to the Bible. It's not really, it's no different, right? It's basically saying it's just in a different language. And whoever wrote it, or the idea of writing it, they just put a little bit more detail. Remember, like I said, all these biblical stories, like a bunch of people in one room and they're all having different conversations, and they just basically politicking of what is where and where, who, and da 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 da. So when they write these stories, it's like a contradiction on both sides because they're all writing what they feel or how they view the story or whatever the case is. Now, once Noah cursed Canaan, and all the brothers decide to expand on the planet, as they call it, Pangea or whatever, right? They're saying that Ham went to Africa, right? But Canaan, his son, stayed. Well, his son Canaan traveled to like where Israel, Canaan was Israel at one point. Then they changed it to Israel, and then they split it in half, right? This is why you have Israel and what's the other part? That's the other place. Israel and whatever the other half is, right? I don't remember the name of it, but and then you have and then some of them went into Egypt, with part Egypt is, or down the Nile area. Now, most of the Canaan stayed within that area. Most of them stayed in the Middle Eastern side as well. There was not much Canaans went towards deep Africa. They stayed on the northern side towards Egypt, a little bit in the a little bit into the Nile River, but majority of them stayed in the Middle East, right? Anywhere between Israel and below Israel, all the way to where Dubai, Dubai is and all them places, right? Shem and Japhet. Japhet stayed up north. He stayed in the Caucasus Mountain. He stayed pretty much over there by well, he went. Let me say it this way. He went towards I guess they call it the west. That's towards Asia. So Indian, Asian people, they claim that's the Japhet people, and Shem, which is supposed to be the AKA white people, they went towards the Caucasus Mountains, towards Russia and them type of places, and they end up towards all the way over Africa. So if the Vikings came from pretty much up top, right? So it kind of makes sense in some ways, but if you study history, you guys would understand what I'm saying. Um, my thing is, I'm not going to use the Bible because I don't. The Bible used the proper history and they embed it into the Bible and they kind of just fabricate it however they want to do it. But it makes a lot of sense, but it's not actually the blueprint of what really happened. But it makes them, it kind of combined within the reality of things, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? They just kind of sprinkle some sugar on top of the stuff to make it look nice. But hey, listen, if you guys read it, if you guys do history and study the timelines, the traveling, the wars, the civilizations that was built around those times, and you just follow the tracks to the timeline, you will see that there was without the Bible, people was there, but you will see where the Bible came into play, and why it came to play, and when it came into play, based on the timeline. You know what I'm saying? That's you just gotta follow history. Right. We just gotta follow the history. Now, after Noah, after Canaan, became, because they were servants to, remember now, Shem and Japheth. Japheth went towards like China and them places. Shem went towards, Europe. Europe, I guess they wasn't paying attention to, like, you know, what Noah said. They didn't really care, or they probably forgot, or those people probably died out, right? Now, no, I know a lot of y'all gonna bring science into this, but right now we're not talking about science because if we bring science into this, it's gonna eliminate the Bible. So let's not bring science into this right now because, we're trying to separate science for the time being. This is just to show you how it's a story. That should show you the reality of it is just a story. It's not a real, actual, physical live event. These are just stories that implemented into real life situations, right? So, Noah cursed Ham, son Canaan. Noah Ham went to Africa, which is like West Africa, deep in Africa. Canaan stayed within the Middle East, if you want to say that. Japheth went towards Asia. Shem, not Seth. Shem went towards Europe. Canaan, which was in Israel, he was a servant to all, to basically everybody except his father. Well, you're going to serve your father no matter what. So I'm going to not say that, right? The problem is this. This is the problem. This is where slavery came in. When, I think it's in, when the Torah, because the Muslims started enslaving the African people first, because they read the book. And they will quickly tell you that we don't We don't deal with black people. We don't deal with the black skinned people. Those people are servants, right? They're supposed to serve us, right? But and that's like the Israel, because you're talking about the Israelites, if you want to call that. But the Israelites are Canaans, right? Anyway, well, they're supposed to be Canaans, but they don't accept that. They don't really accept that today. But anyway, that's another part of the story that don't make sense, right? Just hey, that's I'm not gonna get into that right now though. But the 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 Muslims started enslaving the African people, and they was doing it for a long time, probably like 300-400 years or so. You know what I'm saying? Ever since the Quran came into play, you know what I mean? And then that went on to where the Moors, and this is where the Caucasian came in and started adding fuel to the fire, right? Because the Caucasian had their own indigenous slaves. They was enslaving their own people. When I said slaving, indigenous slave, meaning they had servants, right? They had people, they had their own white people coming to their house, cooking, cleaning, doing whatever they do for the richer people, the people who had more fortunate lifestyles. And they was being servants to their own type of people. The same thing for Africa, the same thing for Asia, right? They all was doing the same thing. That's not slavery. There was a difference between slavery and servants, right? Now, if they had a little war or something like that, and they had prisoners, sometimes those prisoners was never really generally mixed with the local people, to be honest. No, 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 no tribe or community of people got into a beef, right, a war, and then they bring the people from the war, the prisoners, and just blend them into the society and say, "Hey, you want this person?" No, then that's not how it works. The military would lock those people up. They'll put them in a cage. There wasn't room in the society neighborhood. No, 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 that's not slavery. That's locked up. Right? So I'm trying to show you guys the difference between when we tried to compile one word, like everybody did it. No, it wasn't like that. Now, the only people that was enslaving African people at the time, they was enslaving white people too. Don't get it twisted. The Arabs was enslaving white people as well. They were enslaving black people, African people, and African people had some, small. Because remember, when the Romans came over, they was living in Egypt and stuff like that. And if you wasn't Muslim, they would enslave you, because in the Muslim world, if you're not a Muslim, you're an enemy. You know what I'm saying? So they would enslave you. Um, so that's how that was. And the reason why the Muslims was carrying out these atrocious acts and behaviors is because they was strictly living by the book. Because, like I said, the book at that time was the governing book. It was the way of life, right? It was the righteous way to live. So whether it was Christianity or the Vaticans, the Rome, all of these, Christian religion type stuff, people really live by those religion type stuff. The difference is the Bible version, right, was fantasy, while the other versions was more like a reality. They was using actual reality, environmental ideas to signify leadership and rulership and gods, right? Now, what? So long story short, I want to kind of make it a little quick. So long story short, the Muslims started serving African people. Now, once that became very I guess you could say, not, I wouldn't say popular, but it became out of control. That's my way of looking at it. The Moors was also Muslim. The Moors was Muslim. As we know, we got Moors in America today. They're Muslims. The Moors was enslaving black people, because the Bible says that the son of Ham, Canaan, is going to be servants to all the brothers, basically, to Shem and Japhet. Remember, Japhet is more like Middle East, going towards Asia, and Shem is Europe. Europe didn't got into involved with the African slavery until, like, I think, well, they claim it's 1600, but I'm saying it's 1400, right? I'm saying it's around that time. And the reason why I'm bringing it around the time is because when the Moor when the Moors really got involved with the with the Caucasians, right? The Europeans. It was they was already doing trade for many years, right? The Europeans was already coming to Africa and stuff like that, doing trades. They was already doing trades, right? Because a lot of them used to come from up the upper side, from the I guess you call that the eastern side, I would say. That's where like London goes into. You could see like France and um, uh, Spain and what else? The what you call them people again? Italians and those people, right? That was coming in from that end, and they used to do trade and stuff. So it's not like white people don't know that Africa was there. They know Africa was there. It's just that they didn't know how big it was. They didn't know the land mass of it, right? Now, once, and I'm saying this because I want, whether you're Christian or whether you believe in the Bible or not, I'm not telling you to put the book down. But what I'm saying is, you gotta understand, the book is not it's something that you should like. It's like a history. It's a book that tells you somewhat about your history, somewhat, because they use landmass and some real people, not all real people, and locations, right, to identify the book matching up in the reality. So you just gotta make things that make sense and the things that don't make sense, and put the logic into it, right? So what I'm saying is this. The point I'm making is this. When it comes to religious people, especially African people, we should not pay attention to this book at all. We shouldn't. And I'm saying, when I say pay attention to it, I'm saying we should read it, of course. Read it, learn it, understand it, but look at the logic of it and make sense of it. The book tells people how to live, what not to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it. Break down little details of how, of everything about it. And then you should follow those instructions to make your life better. To make your life better. You know what I'm saying? So, the fact that people believe in this book so strongly, so highly, they're following it. They're living by it. They're trying to do whatever the book tells them to do. But the truth is, the book is not made for that. It was made for a group of people who rewrite or we narrate the book to conquer people. And then the people, like the Muslims and the Caucasians, like I said, the Ham, the Shem, and the Japhet people, they took that thing literally. Because when the Shem get a hold of the book, aka Caucasians, right? When they got hold of it or got hold of the information, because they were seeing them when the Moors told them they could sell them slaves and all that different stuff, they was like, slaves? Why would you sell slaves? Why would you sell me your own people? I could hire them. They was like, no, we sell slaves. We got them for sale. And you can do whatever you want with them. You know what I'm saying? You could even kill them if you want to. And the white people was like, what? I could do that? I could treat, well, as long as they're not my people, of course I was going to treat. So when the Caucasian came, when they started really coming to Africa, and then, they seen all the gold, and they see, because there was, like I said, there was trading already prior to all of this. There was already doing the trading. The only people who was enslaving African people was the Muslims. and the Muslim was getting their ass kicked. You know what I'm saying? That's the only people that was doing it. So when the Caucasians got hold of it, once they got hold of, yo, we could buy slaves and all this good stuff, and we don't have to pay them. We don't have to give them a place to sleep. They could we just make them do what we wanted to have them lock up like animals. For some, now in Africa, they have different tribes of people. And as we already know, there's different demographic, different cultures, different style, different everything. And yes, some African people might have a weird way of living. And I use the word weird, right? I'm using the word weird because some of them are weird, right? And we probably, as a black person myself, I probably might have come from one of them weird people. I don't know. But what I'm saying is this. When the Caucasian came and they saw how, because they had civilization, of course. They had some tribes that had built up walls and big huts and houses and look-alike castles and stuff like the mansions and all these different things. And they was wearing gold. So a lot of these people were civilized, living luxuriously, right? But the white people was told that these people are slaves. And then once they believe in the Christianity concept as well. So they looked at it like, oh, these are where these people are. So we can enslave them? It's not just a myth. It's not just some he say, she say stuff. It was like, okay, fine, let's enslave them then. Hell yeah. We could get these people to work for us for free. They're not even, I mean, once they came to Africa and they see some of the tribal people being weird and shit, they was like, they're not even humans. Look how they move. Look how they talk. Look how they act. No, not all of them, of course, but they probably look at the ones that more into the Amazon lifestyle versus the one that had a community lifestyle. In terms of civilized community lifestyle, because you had African people that had civilized communities, you know what I'm saying? But you had some that was just out there, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, long story short, that's basically the starting point of how. And then the thing, like I said, when the Muslims was enslaving African people, they wasn't getting herds and herds and herds of African people. They was getting like, couple hundred here, couple maybe 50 people there, like that. Because African people was fighting back, and it was sword against sword. So once the white people, Caucasian, find out that they could enslave African people, and they tried to do it, and initially they couldn't do it because the African people are warriors. They also can fight. So King V, what's up, man? What's up? So once the African people started showing them like, man, we ain't no pushover. You ain't gonna just come here and do what you want. So they begin to do trade and stuff like that. And then what the white people did, long story short, what a lot of white people did, especially King Leopold, he would give you a breakdown of how he conquered the Congo and a lot of Benin and all those places around there on the East Coast. Oh, East Coast of Africa, I'm talking about. He used the Bible to basically break the people down, to implement their minds, to soften their minds. He started out by telling them, don't talk to him about, good and evil. Don't talk to him about not sleeping with your wife. You should not lie. Don't tell them none of those things because they know, even though they don't believe in Christianity, because African people didn't have no clue about Christianity except for Ethiopia, right? They didn't have no understanding about that stuff until the Bible came to play. And then when the Bible came to play, they started teaching them, like King Leopold and stuff, started teaching them about how to live within the Bible and believe things that they want them to believe and tell them to do things like you should never be rich unless you go to heaven. This is why a lot of black people today are so gullible and try to live on this gullible mindset because in their minds, life is only good until you go to heaven. While the white people or the Caucasian people or everybody else is saying, nah, we got to live good right now. We need that money in right now. You know what I'm saying? But black people is like, no, we're not talking presently because in the last few, I would say from 2010, I would say, a lot of black people have been pushing the energy to be rich. As you can see, is that's all they talk about now, right? But they're not it's not being used in a positive way, right? It's used in a selfish, materialistic, non-responsible way. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not giving that no credit. I'm just saying the mindset of that what the King Leopold and his comparator was teaching the black people is to not understand the logic of the Bible, right? It's to only see the things that are impossible or the things that you should not worship, which is could be reality and understanding or the basic things that you need in life. So the switcheroo the book, they even had a book called the Slave Bible, right? Which just put all negative things for the people to maintain in slavery. And that's what slavery really, well, I would say that's the turning point of it. Once they started using the Bible to, implement them. So once the full enslavement started, because the full enslavement didn't started, I would say probably like people say 1600, but I go back to 14 because before they even bring people to Americas, there was enslaving people to the Caribbeans, South America, and South America is pretty close. You just gotta walk down. It's not that, from Africa to South America. It's not that. It's right there. You know what I'm saying? So they was using, they was shipping people to the Caribbean and South America as trade or whatever it is they was doing. Now, once it came to America and the Americans started getting involved into the slave trade, I think it been bad. You know what I'm saying? They was treating them horribly. They was killing them, and I'm going. This is a side topic. Even in the Bible, it says to conquer a nation, you got to kill off all the men. Probably might as well could kill some of the older women because they're too old, they can't have children. But if the woman is able to bear children, if she's not unruly, you could keep her and keep all her young daughters and keep all the young women and the young boys, preferably under the age of 10. Because boys under the age of 10 is easy to control them and manipulate. The same thing for the girls. But the girls are specifically for, basically impregnating them because the girls don't, women birth rate don't really matter in the biblical term. It's only man's seed matter based on the biblical term, right? Because they say you are what your father is, right? So the goal was based on God, way of thinking, or the Bible God way of thinking. You have to only view a tribe if you want to basically conquer the tribe, and you take their women as long as she's in breeding phase, right? Due to slavery, that's what it was. That's how it was, and that's how African people became so targeted as slaves because the Bible says so. Now it can go even deeper, more detailed from Noah because it's not just Noah who said it, but Noah was the starting point of the whole slave situation, right? And I don't know why people skip that part. Like why they skip? Because that's what starts it. That's what start the whole racism bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like the this one man, his generation of people is known to be slaves. And the Israelites so-called claiming themselves to be slaves. Like they're the only one. Dude, they were okay, let's think about it this. Let's make the sense of it. If Canaanites, right, was to be slaves to his brethren, right, which is the white people and the Asian people, right? Why is it? Do you guys think that they was picking and choosing who's a Canaanite and who is not? They wasn't doing that. They were just, as long as you look black, you're going down. Long as you're from Africa and you have dark skin, brown skin, you're going down. They don't care what your skin tone was. You're a slave. The Bible says you're a slave. You're a slave. That's just what it is. And that's the logic of the whole book. And I bet you they're gonna disagree. I said, no, no, that's what it is. The Bible said so. So if the Bible says so, then you can't say I'm not telling the truth. Because it's there. Noah cursed his whole generation of his grandson Canaan. And Canaan was typically the tribe of people from Israel. Because Israel was named Canaan and they changed it to Israel. Right? It's crazy. I mean, I'm not going to go too far. I just wanted to talk about how, people don't understand that the reason, this is the highlight reason, right? This is the highlight reason for African people being enslaved because Noah cursed his son Canaan and told his son Canaan that he's going to be slave to the Caucasians and everybody else. Luckily, the Asians didn't do too much. They tried to, but they didn't do it a lot. You know? Everybody tried to enslave us. Everybody. And yes, I know you guys are going to say, the white people were slaves too. Yeah, there was endangered slaves. There was service. There wasn't slaves. So this is why I separate the word from servants and slavery. There's capture in terms of military capture, prisoners. Prisoners is prisoners. They're in a cage. Prisoners be in a cage. They don't have their own little huts. They don't be stored in a room like sardines, with women and children. They just never did that. They're basically, slaves was basically like pets. It was like pet animals to your master. You got to do what they say. Move when they tell you move, and they will feed you, but they ain't got to pay you. They pay you for nothing. You know what I'm saying? They even have African people as zoos. They had multiple zoos. Even in England, even here in America, they had zoos, and they want you to have sex in public. Oh man. In public. This is what Canaan did. This is what Noah cursed his son Canaan for the people today to do. That's our whole history right there. Well, not the whole history, but that's just the gist of, I would say the turning point to slavery, the word slavery or the endangered slave, due to the curse of Canaan to all his brothers, because Canaan was supposed to be a servant to all his brothers, all his uncle kids. And here we are today. Now we could go into the whole Esau and what's his name, Japheth or whatever, not Japheth, Jacob, where they talk about how Esau, I think Jacob has stole his blessing from Esau, because his father was going to give some blessings, and that was the curse right there. That could have been another curse right there, because his father also cursed him, saying, he should. I think he said he should die or something like that, because he stole the glory gift for Esau. It just don't make sense, man. I just don't know why we try to not read these things for what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. You can't get no better than that. The book says what it says. But anyway, appreciate you guys paying attention. Appreciate you guys coming in and for this hour and me talking and everything. I might do, but I think I'm gonna double up on this real quick. Um, I do want to hit Genesis. Matter of fact, really and truly, what my goal is to basically give my own speculative breakdown to the Bible, um, comparing different Bibles as well, because I do have a few books that, with reading the Torah, reading the King James. I don't really do a lot of those new modern versions book, because those are just new modern books. But King James, the Torah, the Apocrypha, the Ethiopian Bible, and I think they call it a Septuagint, and then the Quran, because the Quran is also a Christian book. You know what I'm saying? So combining all those books based on their text and words, because a word could throw off the meaning to a sentence, to a conversation or a point you're making. So what I want to do is basically analyze, break down, give my own perspective on these books that I'm reading and how it makes sense and how they contradict each other. Um, I only jumped to the Noah thing because uh, it's it's a big conversation today about slavery and how it started basically, or what's the initiation to it. Because a lot of people are like, why would Caucasians enslave black people like we was animals? Because like I said, they literally treat us like we was animals. They really treat us like animals. You know what I'm saying? Like we was pet dogs and stuff. So my breakdown was to basically kind of show you the starting point to this whole slave concept. You know what I'm saying? And before that, I'm not saying there wasn't. They call them servants. Today they call slave, but it was servants back in the day. And then as we progress into the modern age, we call it slave, right? And that slavery was different from many other slavery. We talking about torture. We talking about using an experiment. We talking about chopping off hands. We talking about millions and millions and millions of hands and killing millions. And the reason why they had to chop off for millions of hands and foot is because they wanted the people of the society to crumble, to basically submit. They had to put fear into the people, right? Like the Jesus thing is, I call it a sacrifice. The fear to submit, right? To that, but people are waking up today. We were kind of being tough about it, and now we're kind of pushing back a little bit. But anyway, enough said. Enough said. Enough said. I appreciate you guys coming in. Hopefully, you guys will be here for the next one, and we're gonna talk a lot more. I think the next show I'm gonna do. I'm gonna break down my Genesis version in terms of where the Adam Eden is, and Adam being in the garden and stuff like that. I want to do. I might do a PowerPoint. I'm not too sure yet. And then I want to put up the description of like all the Bibles, like different written Bibles, because I want to compare the Quran, the Torah, the Egyptian Bible, not the Egyptian Bible, the Ethiopian Bible, and the Septuagint to like match what's really happening, or how it makes sense. Like, cause the Bible is so contradicted. I don't think none of makes sense, but it's a good story to read when you're bored. If you want something to read, right? Or if you want to understand history a little bit, but you're gonna have to do a lot of research. You can't. I'm gonna say this before I go. When you read the Bible, you gotta do your research. When the Bible talking about certain locations, you gotta go and look up those locations. You know what I'm saying? You gotta look those locations up. Um, when they talk about certain characters or whatever, see how you could find the characters, see if the character was relevant or not. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you will know if the Bible is real or not. Because the stories have to match up, the timelines have to match up. Also, too, yes, make sure when you get the arc, the calendar, the atlases, as I would say, or the the pictures of the map or whatever, make sure you get the timeline. So, because the timeline will give you the proper names to tell you where was where was where, and who was where, when, what time there was there. And then you got to use those timelines, sectionalize them. And then when you come to the book itself and you start reading or the finalization, you can put the timelines together and it will be perfect. And that's how you make sense, because the reason, and this is why I said the Bible was just a book, or it was a book written by different people. It could be, if some of it was at different times, right? And they all just tell their story. It depends on how they view the story. And nobody, majority of them is not on point. Almost every one of these chapters contradict each other. But anyway, we're not going to go too far. Appreciate you guys coming in. Appreciate you guys really, really, really coming in and sticking with me for the hour. I didn't really plan to go for it. Well, it's 1:06 now. It's been an hour and 6 minutes. So until the next video, peace. Appreciate it again. Peace.